Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my studio. So I'm broadcasting again from Chesapeake, around the world. And I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I'm in my studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Hello.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast. I got the chat room live, so if you have a comment or you have a question, go ahead and type it in, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Today I'm going to do some interesting shapes. I think every artist has to look around. I found some, I was just on the internet and I saw a picture pop up. I did a snapshot and I said, boy, that'd be an interesting shape. So let me take you to my painting table. And first, this is everettswatercolors.com. That's my website. And all the material and supplies I showed today is on my art supply page on my website. Also, the live classroom in 2023 is on my website, which you can look at the broadcast after today, of today's broadcast, but all the previous broadcasts. Fun with Watercolors, that's where you get a copy of the reference photo and also a copy of the diagram or drawing I'll show today. And Simply Drawing with Everett, that's a new broadcast I have at 7:30 in the evening. I do a drawing exercise on Thursdays at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And this is the QR code. This takes you right to my website, right here. So you just aim your camera at that, take a picture, or aim your camera and focus in on that, and it'll take you right to my website. Okay, down here also is my Facebook page, Everett's Watercolors Art Group, and there's also the QR code, and that'll take you straight to the Facebook page. There you can post. If you're going to paint along with me and do one of my paintings here online, and then you want to share it with me, then this is the link to go here down on Facebook, and you can post your art and give me a chance to look at it and make some comments. So I hope you all take advantage of that. Okay, well today this is a copy of the photograph which I found, and I thought it was very interesting. This is the painting today I'm going to call rock arches, and this is the picture I found on the internet. And really, the arches, there's an arch way here in the background. It's a lighter arch, and then in the middle ground there's another arch here of rocks, and of course in the foreground is this big huge arch up here in the foreground. There's a little bit of sky here that you can see, a little bit of sky here, and a little bit there. So that's about the gist of it. But I'm going to have a fun time painting with these shapes and talk about brush strokes and color mixing and so forth. I did a drawing of that particular photograph, and here's the drawing of the three arches. And what I'm going to do is both of these, the photograph, my reference photograph, and the drawing will be on my website after today's broadcast, and that's my Fun with Watercolors page on my website. So you can get a copy of that, print it on your printer, and then you have something to go by. Okay, what I did after I did the drawing and looked at the picture, I did a careful value study, and what I've decided to do here is in the background arch is going to be my lighter value. So I'm going to go from a light value, and then this arch here in the middle area is going to be like a middle value, and then the arch here in the foreground is going to be darker. So I go from dark to medium to light value. And if you look at the photograph, you see that dark, medium to light value here also. So that's kind of what I went along with that trend there. And when I paint, I'm going to simplify some of the coloring and so forth, but I'm going to stick along with some of the colors I have, and I'll go over that in a moment here. Okay. Now I transferred that drawing that I showed you, the drawing I have of the three arches. I transferred it here to my watercolor paper. This is a Gemini watercolor paper, and it measures 11 by 15 inches wide. It's a quarter sheet of 140-pound Gemini archival watercolor paper, 140 pound. Okay, so the sketch is on there. I take a little close up there. You can see the drawings I have on there. I put in light pencil so I can see basically see the areas and so forth. Okay. Now before I start painting, let's go over my color scheme a little bit. I did a little color mixing chart here of some things that I've tried. This is cerulean blue, which is up here on the top of my palette right here. That'll be for the sky. There's a little bit of water in the painting, and I'll put that in. And I'm using cobalt blue. Now, first arch, that light arch, I'm going to use a combination here. This light gray, and then I get down to the second arch in the middle. I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt and a little bit of burnt sienna to come up a little bit darker, This is for the second arch. Okay, then there's some other colors I want to show, and then down here is the bottom one here is the darkest arch in the foreground. I'm using a little bit more of ultramarine deep here and a little bit of burnt sienna to get a nice dark brown, dark color. So that's kind of my plan here, and I'll show you on the palette. I'm using a limited palette today, and I'll start mixing them up right now. Let's see. I'll use my this is my 3/4 inch. Now the brushes I'm going to use today, let me go over those real quickly. I'm going to use the number 16 round. These are all Holbein synthetic brushes. This is a number 16 round. I'm going to use that quite a bit today. This is the 1/2 inch flat. 1/2 inch flat. These are all synthetic. This is the number 8 round. I'll use that for a couple little places. Then I'll use the 3/4 inch flat. And then the last one I use here will be the 1 inch flat. These are all Holbein synthetic brushes. And I'm probably going to use the hake, the silver brush hake. This will be the small hake. I'll use that for some texture work. And then I'm also going to be I'll be using a little bit of the credit card corner. I'll be doing some scratching with the credit card, a little scratching technique. And I might even go back into using a palette brush a little bit, a little small palette brush. Okay, so those are the tools I'm going to use today. Now let's go back to the colors I'm going to use. The first one I'm going to mix up here is a little bit of cerulean blue. Now that'll be for the sky. That'll be a very light color. And then I'm going to use, let me get my color chart here. For the water, I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt blue. So I'll use cobalt blue up here, second blue color I have. A little cobalt blue for the water. Then up here at the top, the only thing I need now for the top part, a little bit of burnt sienna. Just a little bit of burnt sienna. I'll put that over here. Okay. All right. So those are the 3 colors I'm going to use to start out with. So let me get started. I'm going to use the number 16 round up here I'm going to put in the sky color. So with the brush, I'll go in, I'll pick up a little bit of that light. What I did, I took the cerulean blue and put a lot of water in it, so it's a very light mix of light yellow. So the sky is going to be a light color. I'll put a little more color in that. Okay. I brought it down here so you can see it. There's a little bit of blue with a lot of water in it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the sky color in. So the sky up here is just above the that middle arch, and it's a nice light blue color. Cerulean blue makes a nice sky color. So I'll put that in there, and just go around the edge of the rocks here. They're going to be a little bit darker, so I don't really worry about going over the lines a little bit, because they're going to be covered up with a darker color when I get to the rocks. Okay, so that's part of the sky. And there's a little bit of sky here peeking out at this section right here. There's a little section right here with a little bit of sky above this middle peak, the last little peak back there. And then there's that comes around. Ooh, over here. You know what? It's not going to make it. There's a little bit of sky showing here. Okay. Okay, that's the blue sky. Now while I'm here, while I'm mixing things up, there's just a little bit of water at the bottom here. Let me dry that just a little bit, make sure it's dry. You never want to put another color on top unless you have dry paint, or else they'll start blending together. We'll dry it off very quickly. Okay, it's dry, real quick dry. Now the water is a little bit of water, a little patch of water down here, so I'm going to put a little bit of cobalt blue. So I'll take a little bit of cobalt blue. It'll be a little bit darker in color than the cerulean, and I'm going to put that right down here. Let's see, about right here, over here. Yeah, it's over here. So a little bit of water, a little bit of this scene, I found it on the internet, and it was just there. It happened to show up on my screen, so I did a quick snapshot. And the only place I could, anyway, it's on the coast of Spain, well, the rocky coast of Spain somewhere. But anyway, it was a nice photograph, and I said, well, I'll take a quick shot, and I'll use it as a reference point here for my painting today. So there's a little bit of water there at the bottom of that arc. The one arch. Okay, now the next one I'm going to start with, let me dry this and make sure this is nice and dry over here. Okay. All right, so the first arch I'm going to make is very light, and it's going to be, I'm going to use that, I'm going to use cobalt blue, which I already have on the palette, over here on the side, and mix it in with a little bit of burnt sienna. It's going to be a very light gray, burnt sienna, a little bit of cobalt blue. I need more blue in there. A lot more water. So I want this to be a light gray, leaning toward the cool side, which would be more blue. Let's see, I'll take a test over here. Okay, that's about right. So let's try. So I'm using the number 18 round again. So this number 1 arch, which is the furthest one back, the smallest one in the rear, or in the background, goes along here. So this is the lightest one. This is the light gray. So I'm starting with a light value on the first arch. This is arch number 1. I'm calling it arch number 1 because it's the furthest one away, and it's the first one I'm putting in. And we'll continue on here. This arch goes down. As the sky will peek through a little bit. Using a point of this number 16 round, it gives me a lot of control. It holds this brush holds a lot of paint, and the tip of the brush gives me a nice control of say the edges and so forth. Okay, all right. So that's the light value, and I'll let that dry by itself. Let me blow dry. Because I want to paint here on the side. I'm using a tissue. I'm picking up a little bit of the pigment because I want that to be even lighter. So I'll take a little bit of the paint off that section just by tapping it with a little tissue. I use the tissue just to lift a little bit of the pigment off so it'll be a little bit lighter. Okay, now I'm going to start painting the middle arch right here, the middle arch, and that's going to be a little bit darker, but it's still going to be a light color. Let's see, it's going to be dark. So I'm going to use the sun's coming in from this direction, so this outer side will be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to use that same. I'm going to start with the same color I had here on the lighter one. I'm going to start up here. On the outside edge here, it's a little bit lighter because the sun's hitting it. So I'm going to come down. Okay. And now I'm going to introduce. Let's see. I'm going to change brushes so I don't get the paints mixed up together. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow ochre down here, up at the top. There's a little bit of light color up there. I'm going to use that. So I'm going to put a little bit of yellow ochre up here at the top. So there's some foliage up there or something, but it's a light color. So I'm using the colors that I see in the photograph as a reference. I don't have to follow exactly, but it just gives me an idea. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to mingle these colors together. So I'm going to bring that brush load of gray up into that yellow and kind of let them mix by themselves. Okay. All right. Now I need a darker color now. Hey, while I'm there, let me simplify this also. Let me take that yellow ochre, and this section over here, this arch has another light section. And I'll start that up there. Okay. And I'll use that same mixture of cobalt blue and kind of mingle. I'm going to mingle those two together. So just kind of mix. What I'm doing is just touching them together, and they will join together as a color. Okay. All right, now I'm going to mix up a little darker mix now. I'm going to mix up with that same mix now. I have let's see. I'm going to that same mix of yellow ochre, a little bit of cobalt blue, and then I'm going to touch a little bit of ultramarine blue, and ultramarine blue in with that. I want a darker mix. A little ultramarine blue, a little yellow ochre, and a touch of burnt sienna. So it's going to be a brownish, but with it's going to be a cool brown. It's going to have a little bit of brown mixed in with that, but it's going to be more blue into it. So I got a little bit of ultramarine blue. I don't want it too dark yet, because I'm not there yet. I'm not in the dark area yet. So let me get a little more blue in that. Let me check my color. Okay. Add a little more blue to that. I want a little more blue to that mix. As the colors go further back, the colors get cooler. So that's why I want to make sure I got a blue mix in here. So this is going to be the darker mix here. It's the shadow part of this middle. I'm working on the middle arch now, the second arch. So and I can use my finger to mix use the finger to mix the colors together a little bit.
We have a question. You said the colors get lighter as you go back. Is that to give it
The value gets lighter, yes.
to give it depth?
The question was the colors get lighter as they go back. Yes, that's the value change. We're going from a light area in the background to a darker area in the foreground. So that gives me a depth. Normally when items go back into the distance, they get lighter and they get cooler looking. So the values changes to lighter value, and the colors get a little bit cooler. So I'm trying to do that here in this painting. I'm trying to have these colors a little bit cooler, but yet they'll be lighter than the foreground. The foreground will be darker. And I'm kind of shaping this area up here because it's an arch. So I'm trying to show as an arch coming around. And this arch is in the middle section. It overhangs the smaller one there in the back. So this arch is darker. it's still cooler because I got blue in it. It's still cooler because it's further back. Okay. And those colors kind of mingle together up there. The light and the darks mixed together, and then the yellow ochre is mixing with the gray. That's okay. Because there's texture. This is a rock. These are rocks, so they're going to be rough texture, variable texture, and but right now the most important thing is the value and the colors. Get the value and get the value correct, and the rest will be okay. Okay, now coming off to the other side, this is also dark on this edge. It's because it's in this part of this little arch is in shadow. So it'll be a little bit darker up here on the edge, and then it'll mingle a little bit with the top. Okay, so this is arch number 2. This is the middle arch coming down. We're moving forward. We did the little arch, the little small arch was lighter color, lighter gray. This is a darker gray value. And I mixed burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine blue with some yellow ochre to give me a gray, and the ultramarine gives me the blue color. The blue or cool gives me the cool gray. It's a cool gray. So temperatures of color is very important. Getting the right value and the right temperature, which is cool versus warm. So cool colors recede, they go back. The warm colors come forward. That little bit of yellow ochre up there at the top is warm because that's where the sun is shining on a little bit of that section up there. So, and there's some sort of foliage or something up there, but that's okay. We're not gonna go into how it was constructed. Okay, now there's a little section here right next to this middle arch, which is kind of like a transition rocks that are, and this gives me a nice contrast between that dark section and the light section. And so I'm using that as a like a buffer zone where I have a light and dark together. So this little area in here now is lighter because the sun's coming through this section, so it's lighting up these rocks a little more with the sunlight. Okay, and then I'm going to continue on down, and I think what I'll do is I'll switch brushes here. I'm going to use a lighter gray again, which is it was cobalt and burnt sienna, but a very light mix. It'll be on the blue side. Cobalt blue. A little more blue. A lot of water because I want it to be light. Okay, that'll work. Okay, so now I'm going to go in here now and put in this lighter area, and I'm going to leave a white edge along here just to give it a little more, what I call a little more contrast there with that light and dark. A little white edge will show off that the difference between the two rocks. I want to separate those rocks, not only with color and value, but also with the edge. So this edge down here, I'm going to leave a little bit white on the edge as a highlight. And I'm going to leave some more whites here showing as highlight, because this is rough rock, so they're going to have edges. You're going to have different contours of the rocks. So I'm going to leave some white showing. Because this one is a little bit closer now. We're coming a little bit closer to the foreground, so this is like a in between the middle ground and the foreground. It's kind of like a transition point. So we'll come down here about this far. Okay. All right, now I'm going to introduce a little more, there's a little more yellow down here. So the sun's hitting part of this rock down here. No, it doesn't hit it, but it's got a color down here. I'm going to put in some light. Again, these light colors, yellow ochre, and against that gray, gives me a little more, gives me some contrast. And you not only look for colors and value, but you also look for contrast as much as you can, especially in nature. Get different colors or different values to make so they work together. So this rock formation is coming down with the sun hitting that section, making parts of it light. We'll let that dry a little bit now. Okay, let's see. And while I'm down here with the yellow ochre, I can go ahead and put some. I can go ahead and put some yellow ochre in here on this rock area, just to put some color in here. Okay. So what I think I'll do is let that dry by itself. I'm going to take my hake brush. This is the small hake, and I'm going to load it up with yellow ochre. And I'm going to load it up with yellow ochre. And I'm going to go in here now. I'm going to put in some rough-looking rock areas up here in the foreground. And this gives me a texture of the rock. Because there's a lot more texture up here in the foreground than there is anywhere else. More detail up here in the foreground. Up here I'm going to put some more. Get some more paint on that brush. Okay, so I'm doing a rough brush stroke, almost a dry brush because very little water in the brush. Very little. I just dampened the brush so it would be movable. But then I picked up the yellow ochre right out of the palette, right out of the well. Yeah, just a little bit more water. But it gives some yellow. There's some yellow highlights on these rocks over here, so I'm putting a little bit of yellow as a base coat. Maybe a little more over here. On this section. Even up here. Okay, so I got some yellow showing up here around the area. Okay, a little more down here. Okay, now that one's dried there pretty well. So now I can go ahead and I'm going to start mixing up some darks now. So I'm going to use. I'm going to start over here on the left side. So I'm going to mix one of the real darks I have. I'm going to use Ultramarine Deep and burnt Sienna. That'll give me a dark color, a dark brown. Okay, now I'm coming forward now, so I'm going to put more brown into it. So more burnt Sienna, because it's a warmer brown than the ones the grays in the background are cooler. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead over here now. I'm going to start putting in some brush strokes here for this. I'm using the 3/4 inch flat. And I'm going to start defining the contour here of the rock. The edges are very important. So this rock overhanging here is going to have a rough edge. So I'll indicate that here with the brush stroke. With the brush mark, it'll be a rough edge here where the rock is hanging over the cliff, over this large arch in the foreground here. So now this dark area now will really show off the. Now, if you look at the photograph in detail, you'll see that there's lots of texture here on these rocks. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting in some lines over here because there were a lot of lines on this side. There were lines and texture parts of the rock. What I can also do now is, while it's still a little bit wet, what I'm going to do is take the credit card, and I'm going to put in some scrapes and mark in some more of those lines, because there's lots of lines over here on the left side, on both sides. But I'm scratching in some texture here, shape. Okay, and we'll do some more as we go along. You know, come down here. With a large area like this, you need lots of paint, so you got to make sure you make a nice big puddle, and it's pretty thick. It's probably medium. It's probably the consistency of cream. It's not real milky. It's not real thick, but it's also has some texture to it. So the thickness of the paint's about like cream. And it goes down very nicely. I'll bring this over here. Okay, I'm going to come back and work on these rocks some more, but I just want to get a kind of a base coat in there. Okay, now over here, on this side is the same thing. I'm going to start, but there's several layers, so I'm going to make some different layers here. I'm going to start with the lighter layer. A little bit more yellow ochre, I think, in this one. I'm using the 3/4 inch brush, and it's kind of like a dry stroke, where I want to get kind of like a rough texture here. Dry stroke brushing. Then I can take that credit card now. I'm going to go through and scrape out some lines, because there's a lot of lines over here. So I'm using the credit card now to move, just to make some scratches over here that are parts of this rock formation over here. Okay, so that's a credit card technique. Yeah, an old credit card, just cut it up and use it for different things. You know, use it for scraping, texture. Okay, now one thing I want to do is put some darks. Now I got to get it real dark. So now I'm going to go really dark. I'm going to put in here, I've got a dark blue, which is called royal blue, and I'm going to put in the burnt sienna, and that'll give me really a dark mix. And I may put a little bit, just a touch of alizarin crimson. So I'm going to get a on this part of the rock formation, I'm going to have really a real dark area, really dark, because the rocks are darker. It could be wet or whatever they are. It could be moist. Different rock formations. So here, and I'm also playing with the edges a little bit to make interesting shapes and so forth. So make it look like rock edges. These layers and layers of rocks here that I have on this arch. It's not a smooth surface. It is not a smooth surface. It's a very rough surface. So I'm making it look rough. And I want to show off some of those white edges, which I'll do more. I'm kind of putting in the base coat right now. Just getting in the base color I want to use, and I'll go back in and do some more definition. But getting in the colors I like to see. So this area here will be the darkest area on this side. It'll be really dark, and the other sides will be a little bit lighter, still dark but lighter value. And this section in here, let's see. Let's see that one here. I'm thinking ahead is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to think. Okay, I gotta let that dry a little bit. Okay, now over here, go back to that lighter mix, which was burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I can go in here now and get a little more definition. I'm using those strikes now, leaving some white paper showing because there are some marks over here. And I'm doing this. I'm doing it to this demonstration. I'm doing it much quicker than I would if I was really, if I was painting this for a final. This is really a demonstration to show you how I would do this, and I have some things to show you after I finish with this that will show you a little more detail of what we can do. I'm keeping that white edge. Again, I'm separating these layers. These white edges will pop out, and I think that makes it really interesting about between the layers of rocks. Keeping a white layer to separate the layers of rocks. And then I'll take that credit card again and go in and scrape out some more lines. Okay. Now I needed some more of that dark mix here. I wasn't finished with it yet, so I got to go back and mix it up again. Ultramarine, a little bit of burnt sienna, and I put a little bit of my royal blue to make it really dark, and a touch of red, a little bit of alizarin crimson. And down here, I want to get a dark right in here. There's a section down here, it's also dark. So I used the photograph as a reference. I got some ideas and maybe some of the structure, some of the configuration. But at this point here, I'm just going to put in as much as I think is necessary to get the message across. So this is a rocky arches, and there are a lot of darks and lights along here, and there's lots of texture on these rocks, different shapes, and the light's going to reflecting off of certain parts. So I'm just kind of interpreting this the way I see it, and if I did it again, I'd probably see it a different way. So each time you look at it, you're going to get a different opinion, a different thought. And this will come on. Let me bring this one down here. This is an edge, like a shadow of this edge of this rock here. Okay. Okay, this one section in here now will be a little bit lighter. So I'll go back to my cobalt blue and burnt sienna mix. Cobalt blue, burnt sienna. Be a light gray. A little more cobalt blue. A lot of water. Okay, yeah, that'll work. Okay, so this is kind of a lighter mix. It's not as light as that one section there, but it's a little bit lighter. And I'm going to leave a lot of whites now next to this really dark, because that's going to pop that out. And the edge here was going to show off, this dark against the light here will show this particular section of the rocks. So the light and dark values will work together to show shapes and edges, which is very important. And it helps tell a story. These rocky arches here on the coast of Spain, and this section right here is going from light to dark, or this is my darker area, and as you go forward, it gets lighter and lighter into the sunlight. But here we have more shadow, and it's more covered with shadow than the foreground. And keeping that section light in there gives it an impression. See this one here. I gotta go all the way down here. And I'll go over here. Okay, I'm going to put another patch of yellow. It's this one here. This one's good. That one's good. Okay. Okay. All right. There's a a couple little places down here. I'm going to put a little bit of light yellow ochre down here. This is a rock section over here. I'm going to just stick that in. And there's one section here, it's almost white because of the reflection off of the sun. So I can put a little bit of blue in there in this section just to give it a color and leave lots of white showing. Okay, let's leave that alone. Now, there's one section down here, it's the top there, I can put that into. Let's finish that off. That's going to be a light gray. It's kind of the roof of the arch, so I can kind of put that in there. And it just kind of tops off the top of this painting. Okay, all right, that's kind of the top of the arch. And then down here, what I was talking about is the foreground is like sand. It's like sand on the beach. So what I'm going to do there, let me clean off a little bit area of my palette here. Take the sponge, wipe out a little section here, and see, I'm going to change brushes. I'm going to use my 1-inch. I use the 1-inch flat Holbein brush, synthetic. I use that for washes and so forth. So what I'm going to do here is kind of pick up. I'm going to start out with a little bit of yellow lemon, my lightest yellow. I'll start out with that. And I'll go up here with lemon yellow. It's just to get, now again, I'm painting in depth. So I'm going to start with a lighter color up forward. This is sand. This is a patch of sand here at the bottom of the painting. Beach sand, okay? Then I pick up a little bit of yellow ochre. A little bit of water, a little bit of yellow ochre. Mix it in with that yellow lemon. And now it comes down. It'll be a little bit lighter, a little bit darker shade. So I'm getting a little bit darker as I come forward. Stay lighter up forward. As I come forward, you're going to get lighter. And I want to mix these two a little bit. At least some white paper showing. It's okay. And then the foreground, way down at the bottom, then I can pick up some burnt sienna. Mix it in with that yellow ochre. And that'll be my darkest sand color. And get some more yellow ochre. And more yellow ochre. So the sand now reads depth-wise, going from dark into light. Just like the arches. So I start with a dark value forward, and then as I move back into the background, it went into a lighter value. The same way with the sand, it lays down if you have a dark to light value. Gradation. Overlap the colors so they mix and mingle. Mingle those colors so you don't see there's no lines. I don't want lines. They kind of phase together. Okay, this area over here, I'm gonna make a little more gray on this section over here. Just some grays. I'm taking some light grays off the palette and just filling in the white spots. This is the light, rocky section here. It's a light color, a lighter color. So I just kind of fill it in with some palette colors, a little bit of light gray on top of that yellow ochre I put in earlier. Okay. All right. All right, before, let's see, I can touch up a few areas. Let's see. think what I'll do is I'll go back to the, let me go back to the 3/4 inch brush. I'm going to pick up some of this yellow ochre I have in the palette. Pick up the yellow ochre. I'm going to go back in, cover up some of these sections I have left white. I'm going to put a little more color in there. I'm going to leave the whites alone on the edges, and some of them I'll take out. Maybe I'll just leave a little white as little highlights. Some areas are brighter than others. Kind of fill this section in with a little more yellow ochre. Okay, and down here I can put a little more texture here. And you can use your fingers. I use my fingers to kind of rub it around. I spread the paint around with my fingertips. Give it a little texture. This one here, I can put a little more. I'll put a little more color on this. I want this to be a little bit darker here. So I'll put a little layer of burnt sienna over top of that, and then hit it with my fingers a little bit. Give it a little roughness because it's a rock. And this one here, I can put in a little bit of shading here. This one here, I can come in and I can build a rock here with an edge on it. Put a little base on it, a little shadow. Little rock formation down here at the bottom. Okay. All right, I'm doing the same thing over here with yellow ochre. I'm going to come over here and put some more yellow ochre here on this side. Put some more color. And fill in some of those white spots, just a little bit. I'm going to leave some whites showing, but I don't want a lot of whites. I don't want too many whites. I want some. Get that brush nice and wet. This 3/4 inch brush covers the area very nicely. It's a synthetic brush, but it does a nice job. It gives me a nice flat stroke. Holds a nice quantity of paint. Built this area over here a little bit. Okay. All right. Now, what I think I'll do now, one thing I was thinking about was using let's mix up some color. We'll mix up some dark color again. I'll use that ultramarine blue, ultramarine deep blue, a little bit of burnt sienna. I want a nice dark brown, a little bit of alizarin crimson, or brown. Okay, that's about the consistency of cream, whipped cream, of cream. It's not too milky. It's a little bit thicker. About this, and I'm going to take my credit card now, and I'm going to put the edge in, dip the edge into the, and I'm going to draw in some lines. Those lines are those crevices in these rocks, and I'm going to just go ahead and draw them in. They're straight lines, showing the edges of some of those rocks. So I'm just kind of putting that in over top of these other colors, kind of break it up a little bit to show more texture over here of these rocks. So the edge of this credit card, it can be used also for painting. You can scrape with it. You can also add paint to it. So just put some color on the edge and use it as a mark. Put in lines. This is what I'm doing here now. I'll put some down. There's some down here also. No, not that section. There's a couple lines in here. Leave that one alone. Go over here. There's some lines over here. I got to get some on this side. So these areas that are white or lighter, I'm going to put in some of these lines. So just put the credit card in there, dip it in the paint, and pick up the paint on the edge, and then use it to apply paint on it. But it gives you a nice straight line. Gives a nice mark. Okay. I could have done it the same way with a palette knife. I loaded the palette knife up on the bottom. Put the palette knife in there, and you go in here and you're going to use this. Put some nice dark lines in there. So I'm putting in texture. I'm adding in texture to this rock face over here because there are lots of lines in here with lights and darks on. So this shows really shows the contour of those rocks. There's lots of gouges in there and so forth. So leave that alone. Come over here to this side, and these have more of an angle to them, but they're basically the same idea. There's long marks. Okay, we're about ready to wrap this one up here almost. Got a few more marks, a few more things I want to do before we finish it off. Okay, I'm just adding in some more texture over here. So that's another way. That's another way to add texture or add marks to a painting is to use a credit card edge or a palette knife edge to put it in a straight line or a straight mark to give you that look of say a rock face and so forth. There's some over here too. Let me put some in here on this one. This has got some. This has got some rocks. This has got some edges on it too. This section right here. This one is showing, it's lighter, it's sitting out in the, it's got more sunlight hitting it over here. So these rough edges or ridges are going to show up more in the sun. Because the sun is reflecting off of those contours of the rock. So there's some rough edges over here on this side. Okay. Now what we can do on this rock face here, we can go in and just take a brush with some paint on it and just kind of put in some rough. This is a rock face, so what I'm doing is just dabbing it now. I'm just kind of blotting it on top of this color here to give it some texture, give it some rocky texture look, even up here. Make this a little bit rougher up here. So it's a little bit mixture of burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine deep with a dark brown to kind of mix things up a little bit. Okay, is there anything else I want to add in there? I can do the same thing over here. This has got some marks on it also. It's not just a straight rock face. It's got bumps and crannies. So give it a little roughness over here. Just dab it on. Take the brush load and just dab it on. Give it a little bit of texture, a little bit of roughness. Give it some rocky edges. And this comes down here, and it might be a little edge along the bottom here. So don't be afraid to rough up the surface here, because that's what it is. It's a rough surface. Okay. All right. Now the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add in. It's not in the picture. It's not in the painting, but it's something I wanted to do. There's this forward arch. There's the middle arch, and then there's this background arch. But there's a little piece of rock out here, way off in the background. And in the photograph, it's light, but I'm going to make it darker. I'm going to take some burnt sienna, water it down a little bit. So my idea here is I'm going to put some color in there to really make it pop out. So I'm going to take a burnt sienna, and I'm going to make that rock So by changing the color, adding this color here, now this is going to attract the eye. This is really kind of the focal point. It could be a focal point. I'm making it a focal point just by putting a color in here. But just to demonstrate that you can put any color you want to in a painting, but and have a purpose. The purpose here is to have the eye go right to this section of the painting. So I added this little difference in the colors, a little bit of change of color in the painting. That number one, here's the foreground. Your eye is going to go into the middle ground, which is the second arch, and then into the background, into the small arch, and then bam, hit that final rock there in the background. Okay, now it's still wet, so it'll dry down a little bit. Okay, well that's my demonstration of showing the three arches, the rocky arches, and the textures of using the credit card and the palette knife and brush strokes and so forth. Okay, and I'll show you the color mixes. Let me show you a couple of things I did with this same painting. The reason I really wanted to do this, I wanted to pick an interesting shape. And this was an interesting shape that I found. So that is the way now this was really impressionistic look at what the picture showed, okay? Very impressionistic. And it was a quick study on putting in the colors and the values. But let me show you a couple of things here I did to think about this painting. I did it a couple ways. Let me put this aside now. The first one I did an abstract. I did an abstract view. Okay, there's the abstract. It still has the forward arches, has the middle arch, has a small arch in the background, and it has a little bit, that little rock back there that I painted in burnt sienna. It's got the foreground. Its foreground is the sand, and there's the sky. So it's got all the components, but of course I simplified everything. I made everything into an abstract type shapes. But that's an abstract painting of that particular scene. Okay, and then I went ahead to practice a little bit better. I went ahead and did a more realistic painting of the picture of the photograph. So there's a picture of the photograph as I saw it with the actual painting. There's that little section back here is lighter, and so let me bring it over to my close-up camera. I got a close-up camera here. We can take a close-up look at that. Okay. That's a good shot right there. Okay, that's a close-up of the one I did as a realistic type painting. Okay, let's go back to my main. Let's go back to the main camera. Okay, well, as usual, I had some fun today doing shapes. And those shapes I found of the arches I think were very challenging, number one, to make a decent painting out of it, but also to get something that realistically you could see and practice with shapes, contours, contrast, and also texture. So I'll be back again this evening. I'll be back at 7:30 this evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do simply drawing with Everett. I'm going to do a drawing exercise for about 25 minutes. And this will be my 4th episode, so I'm looking forward to that one. But I appreciate you all looking in. Give me your comments. Give me some questions if you have them. And if you're first time looking in, please subscribe to my channel. It helps with my rating. So I'm going to see you next week on Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So, bye.